What's up, Falcon fans? On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers versus the Atlanta Falcons preview 2023 Week 2. If you guys like this type of content, hit that like button. If you guys hate this type of content, hit that dislike button. It will hurt your boy's feelings. And also, if you want to do a huge favor for your boy, by hitting that subscribe button, it will help out the empire grow tremendously. So on that note, let's just talk about the 7 categories I have for today's episode. Let's begin. Home field advantage versus home field advantage. So obviously the Green Bay Packers will have to travel again in week 2, going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the Falcons do not have to travel at all, where they get a little bit more game time, they get a little bit more prep instead of the Green Bay Packers. Now obviously the Green Bay Packers did beat the Chicago Bears at their home at Soldier Field. Well, it was really much of a whoop ass, but besides that, I'm still going to give it to the Atlanta Falcons just because how our fan base has dealt with the Carolina Panthers. So I know, and most people know, that Soldier Field was pretty much crowded for the Chicago Bears fans, but even still, I believe what the Atlanta Falcon fan base can bring to the table. So I'm going to give the slight points to the Atlanta Falcons. So now let's talk about category number 2. Coaches versus coaches. Matt LaFleur versus Arthur Smith. So let's start off with Matt LaFleur first. He got the head coaching job from the Green Bay Packers since 2019, and he's been putting a lot of work into that organization. And through 2019 through 2021, he has been finishing first in the division with 13-3 or 13-4 record. He brought them to the NFC Championship games twice, and then also brought them into the NFC Divisional game once. Of course, they lost to the 49ers, Buccaneers, and 49ers, but even still, he took them to the promised land to almost reach to the Super Bowl. I'm very impressed with that. But in 2022, he had his down year as a head coach when he went 8-9 and finished third in the NFC North for the division record. But even still, I was very impressed of how he handled and conduct himself as a head coach, and it proves it right here when he uses his offensive skill points, because he is an offensive mind genius, by the way, where he had a grand total of 67 total games as a head coach, and he averaged 30 points per game in 28 games out of those 67 games. And the records of him winning and loss totals are 47 wins and 19 losses. But if you calculated the game that was in week 1 on September the 10th versus the Chicago Bears with a W with 38-20, that would grand total be of wins of 48. Now that's why I added become in total 67 yards he have won as a head coach, compared to Arthur Smith that we're going to talk about right now. So when it comes to Arthur Smith wins and loss total, he's played a grand total of 35 games as our head coach with 15 wins and 20 losses so far. It doesn't really look too great. We haven't not finished first in our division. We've been finishing third and fourth. I don't know, you call it respectively, but obviously I know some people will probably say we can't compare these two, obviously because they both have different philosophies on how they run the offense, and I get it, but they also have the same basic defense of a 3-4 style of defensive scheme-wise. And then of course, you have to look at, what Green Bay Packers, what they have in their offense. They had Aaron Rodgers, now they have Jordan Love, and we had, Marcus Mariota, Matt Ryan, and then of course now Desmond Ridder at the helm. Of course, I know also people are going to bring up talent. The Green Bay Packers at that time and currently have a lot of talented all-pro types of players, while the Falcons and of course the media had been bringing us down, saying we had one of the worst rosters in a couple of centuries. So obviously that plays a huge part, and of course what type of opponents they face in that division and outside that division. There's a lot of factors we could talk about and go into, but that'll probably like over a 2-hour video, and I don't think anybody wants to hear me talk all that time and bore you guys. But also, let's take a gander at this. So since the 35 games that Arthur Smith has been our head coach, 4 games we have scored over 30 points or more. Now that's not saying if you score highly you're gonna win every time, compared to Matt LaFleur's record of scoring 28, 30 plus points per game. And that's not like an indicative of saying if you score more you're gonna lose, or if you score more you're gonna win. It just means of how much firepower that both of these head coaches are gonna bring to the table. That's all. In conclusion, my points is going to the Green Bay Packers because I like their head coach a little bit much better than Arthur Smith right now. And also, Arthur Smith makes some really questionable play callings at certain key moments I just don't agree with. So let's continue with category number 3. Packers quarterback and wide receivers versus the Falcons secondary. So let's start out with Jordan Love. He was drafted way back in 2020 in the first round with the 26th overall pick to the Green Bay Packers. And obviously, he was behind Aaron Rodgers until this season, where he did a pretty good job against the Chicago Bears, where he threw over 245 passing yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions, only got 1 sack and had 27 attempts and had 15 completions. He looked more comfortable in the pocket since the last time he got his starting debut back in 2021 when he had to go against the Kansas City Chiefs, where it was a 13-7 loss for him, where he did throw for 190 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception to boot. So I saw the Packers and Bears game live after the Falcons and Panthers game was over, and I was very impressed how Jordan Love conducted himself when it came to the offense side of the ball. I thought he had a really great poise. I thought he stepped up in the pocket very well with his first step setting. If he didn't get his first target, he certainly found his second target. He didn't hesitate a lot, making good solid plays, and he didn't have very few misstepping at the point of the attack when he was looking at his guys. Now, some of them did drop some of the balls, or sometimes he did kind of overthrew a little bit, but he was getting pressured. But even still, I liked how he put the ball placement in their hands of the wide receivers to make those incredible chain plays, moves, and also those 2 touchdowns. And then, of course, the other touchdown by the running back Aaron Jones for an excellent, touchdown reception on a 4th-3rd conversion. Excellent job. So when it comes to the Packers wide receiving core, I was kind of shocked how young these guys are when it comes to NFL experience. So for Romeo Doubs, he was drafted back in 2022. Then you have Malik Heath, who was drafted in 2023. And then Jaden Reed, who was also drafted in 2023. And then you have Samori Toure, who was drafted in 2022. And also you have Christian Watson, who was also drafted in 2022. Then you have the last guy in Dontavion Wicks, who was drafted in 2023. But the most dangerous wide receiver in their arsenal is Christian Watson, that didn't play in the first game versus the Bears because he had a hamstring, and he still has a hamstring injury. So hopefully he doesn't play in this game. If he does, that means really serious business for the Atlanta Falcons secondary. And also Romeo Doubs is another killer that we have to watch out for. Now, he got injured during the game, but he was so fantastic in that game. He was targeted 5 times, caught 4 receptions for 26 total receiving yards, but 2 touchdowns that really helped the Green Bay Packers really destroy the Chicago Bears. So we'll see if he suits up again against the Atlanta Falcons. So when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons secondary, they have more experience when it comes to playing in the National Football League. AJ Terrell, 2020, Jesse Bates, 2018, Mike Hughes, 2018, Jeff Okudah, 2018, etc., etc. And we shut down Bryce Young pretty well. Bryce Young only threw for 146 total yards with 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, of course, and the passer rating of 48.8. So that's a pretty good. Yes, even though he was a rookie quarterback, but even still, quarterbacks can still make you look silly if you don't respect them enough, and if you don't pressure them, and if you don't press the wide receivers or whoever is going to be in front of you, and if you don't leave them wide open spaces, they will bite you in the dust. So good thing that our secondary stood the times on that. On that note, I'm going to give a point to the Atlanta Falcons secondary because I think they have more experience, and I think they can maintain where Jordan Love will throw the ball. So that's why my point goes to the Atlanta Falcons. So now let's talk about category 4. Packers running back, tight end, and O-line versus the Falcons front 7. The Green Bay Packers offensive line did a really good job against the Chicago Bears. They only allowed 1 sack from Jordan Love. Jordan Love was pretty well maintained in the pocket, and the Green Bay Packers run game was pretty good as well. They only got 92 total rush yards, but they did get 1 rushing touchdown, and the longest run was 10 by Patrick Taylor. But even still, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are pretty great running back duos. So they didn't have a clear-cut, explosive game against the Chicago Bears, but we shouldn't underestimate them because they can definitely have a field day, especially with Aaron Jones. But he is banged up. He got a hamstring injury during the game, so it is questionable if he's going to play or not. If he does, he'll probably have minor, reps, but even still, I like our chances with our front 7, even though we gave up 154 total rushing yards to the Carolina Panthers, but I did like the pressure. I did like the opportunities of the sacks. I did like the hurries. I did like the quarterback hits by our Falcon players, and I think our defensive coordinator, Ryan Nelson, really did a great job in disguising a bunch of packages. So I'm going to give the edge to the Atlanta Falcons on this one. Now let's talk about category number 5. Falcons quarterback and wide receiver versus the Packers secondary. I'm going to get straight to the point here. The Atlanta Falcons are not a passing team anymore. They are a run-heavy team first. Now, we usually work well with the play-action pass when we set up the run game early on, but it was very clear and stated that they don't care if the Atlanta Falcons are going to pass 5 yards or 300 yards. As long as they can figure a way out to win the games, it doesn't matter to them. So that means our receiving core might not get the amount of targets or get the amount of chances to shine so far in this upcoming season. So I really don't know what's in store for Josh Allen, Kadero Hodge, Mac Hollins, Drake London, and Scotty Miller. But what I can tell you is that the Green Bay Packers secondary are legit by Jameer Alexander that leads this team. He is a beast, all pros corner. Just, he shut down DJ Moore. He shuts down a lot of really top tier wide receivers. Then you got Rasul Douglas, who is a really good nickel slash, right side corner for them. And then, of course, you got strong safety and Darnell Savage, who's also a first-round pick for the Green Bay Packers. And then you got a bunch of other guys, Nix, Owens, Valentino, and then Ford and Anderson. So they're all a complete, well-rounded, secondary. And I have to give my points to the Green Bay Packers on this one. So now let's talk about category 6. Falcons running back, tight end, O-line versus the Packers front 7. And we'll begin with the offensive line for the Atlanta Falcons. They didn't protect Desmond Ridder pretty well in the first, second, and third quarter against the Carolina Panthers, where they gave up 4 sacks towards Desmond Ridder. But the run game was pretty good. I mean, we did gash the Panthers for 130 total rushing yards with 26 attempts. And Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both got over 50 plus yardage, 2 total touchdowns in the run attack. So that's pretty good. The offensive line did create a lot of great holes where our running backs went through without getting touched until 5 yards after contact. So that's really awesome as well. Of course, for the tight end position, Kyle Pitts was targeted 3 times, only caught 2 receptions for a grand total of 44 total receiving yards. And then Jonnu Smith, he was on the field, and Michael Pruitt as well. But unfortunately, they didn't get targeted at all because Desmond Ridder wasn't even looking at their direction. But they did do a lot of play action plays, and they also did a lot of run blocking as well. But hopefully against the Green Bay Packers, that can definitely change. The Packers front 7 really have some notable names in Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Devondre Campbell, former Falcon, now all-pro linebacker for them, Rashawn Gary, Justin Hollins, Preston Smith, and then Quay Walker, then Lucas Van Ness as well. So they have incredible pass rusher specialists, incredible linebackers, long, lengthy, speedy guys can get up to your face, put the pressure onto you, and they did that exactly to Justin Fields and made him feel uncomfortable inside of the pocket, where he got rattled a lot, where he threw interceptions towards Walker, and then he got sacked 4 times, where he threw 216 total yards with 37 attempts and 24 completions. And what really struck me was that they shut down the number 1 rushing team last year. Now, obviously, they had over 122, but it was how much per average yards they allowed. Now, of course, you're going to allow Justin Fields to get the most rushing yards because, he's Justin Fields. But I like how they contain all the other Chicago Bears running back, where if you take Justin Fields out of the equation, they pretty much shut down the run game. So I'm very impressed with that statistics. But obviously, the Atlanta Falcons, I feel like, are a lot better when it comes to the run game. So I personally feel like that the Atlanta Falcons can definitely handle their own business. And plus, CP may come back fully healthy and recharge. So I'm going to give my advantage to the Atlanta Falcons on this one. So now let's talk about the last category in category 7. Special teams versus special teams, and this one's pretty simple, straightforward. It goes to the Green Bay Packers just because they got more opportunities in the kick returns and the punt returns and, the kicking and the punting. And, I like Younghoe Koo, don't get me wrong. Brantley Pinion, I like him a lot. Scotty Miller didn't really get a chance. D. Alford didn't get a chance either. But, Nixon, Reed, Carson, and then their punting guy, they just got more opportunities, and it just shows. So I'm going to give my point to the Green Bay Packers. So what are my final predictions in week 2 against the Green Bay Packers? I have the Atlanta Falcons winning this game, a close one, 24-20. The Green Bay Packers are a really good team, but I feel like the Atlanta Falcons will just pull it out at the very end. If you guys watched this to the very end of the episode, thank you so much for taking your own personal time and day to watch these Falcon content videos. I love making videos. There's more videos on the screen if you guys are interested. So on that note, what do Falcons do? Rise up. Until the next episode, show love and peace to the world, and peace.